Hannah, and today I have some beautiful cards using blending brushes and masking that I think you're going to love. On all of these cards, I created scenes on the card base itself. So I'm only using one single piece of paper, my card base, to create these beautiful cards. Let me show them to you. The first step to creating these cards is to mask off part so that when I use my blending brushes, I don't get ink on the entire card. So what I've done, I want some strips to cover up the sides of the card and leave an open area in the center or off center a little bit. So to do this, you can use several things. You can use some removable tape if you have some thick tape. You can use large Post-it notes. I know I've used those before in my collection, or you can use some paper you have, just scrap paper. This is our 6-inch grid paper for the Stamparatus that I love, that I have just put some multi-purpose glue on it. I put one little strip down each side. I left that face up to dry, and that is a removable adhesive. Now, before I put this on my card, I do want to reduce that tackiness a little bit. So what I do, I like to lay this like on my pant leg or on the bottom of my shirt to pick up just a little bit of lint to make it a little bit less sticky. Now, I want to put these on the card, and to do this, it can be a little hard once you get in here to tell if you're laying it on straight or not. So if you lay some grid paper or grid mat underneath, then you can use that for the lines there can be a guide. So lay that one down towards the bottom. This is going to be a horizontal card, and this one I'll lay right about here. Now, if you use the multi-purpose glue, you probably don't need to press real hard on this. I've had several of these that I don't reduce the tackiness enough, like I don't put it on my pant leg or get enough lint on it, and it does tear the card when I remove it. So definitely be careful with that. You don't want that to happen after all your hard work. Now I'm going to do some blending first. The card I'm making, this is going to look a little bit like a meadow with some plants and flowers and bees. So the colors I want to use at the bottom, I have Old Olive and Evening Evergreen. And then I'm planning to use a little bit of Smoky Slate up at the top. I think I may start with that. So when you use blending brushes, you want to pick up that ink first on your brush, and then you want to blot a little bit off on some scrap paper. So I'm getting a piece of blank grid paper here to lay underneath all of this. That way when I blend off the edges, it picks up my ink. So I pick up some ink like this. I press lightly, do some swirling. Want to blot off the extra here, and then use a swirling motion as I gently come onto the card. Now this gray at the top, I want it to be really light, so I am not going to make it very dark. You may not even really notice it very much here, but what I always find is that when I remove the mask, when I remove that paper, then it really is, it's a lot more noticeable than you think when that's still in place. Okay, so I have my Smoky Slate there at the top. Let's flip this around and start adding some of those greens. So after I do my blending, I'm going to stamp on top, but I wanted to create this base with the greens first. So this is Old Olive. I'll start with this, and I'm going to come up higher with this color, and then when I use the Evening Evergreen, that darker color will stay down lower. So I'll add a little bit more of this, make it a little bit darker towards the bottom. And now let's come in with some of that Evening Evergreen. I would love for you to give me a comment down below. Let me know, do you use blending brushes? Is this something that you use a lot? Is it something that you haven't added to your collection yet and you've been thinking about it? Maybe you have some questions. Maybe it's one of your favorite tools. I would love for you to let me know. Okay. I think that should be a good base, good background for our meadow. Now I'm going to bring in some stamps, and I'm using stamps from the Honeybee Home Stamp Set. Really pretty set that I've been using quite a bit. And I'm first going to add some flowers with Misty Moonlight ink. This is the flower stamp I want to use. And I'm going to stamp this a few places where I think they're going to look nice, and then I'm going to fill in with some other stamps. But I decided I wanted to use this one first. Okay, so I think that looks nice. Now I want to fill in with this stamp and some mossy meadow. So this is going to look like that greenery out here in the meadow. And my mossy meadow is pretty light here. I could stand to re-ink this pad, so I'm going to stamp this several times to get those a little bit darker, fill in a little bit more. It is kind of nice having it light though, because if I stamp over my flowers, it's not going to take away from them. And I like when things kind of jump up and down. If you get everything too even across, then it doesn't look very realistic. Now I do have some flower clusters that I've been debating whether to use these or not. And some Pacific Point ink. I think I am going to add a few of these in here where these other blue flowers are, just for a little bit extra blue color and interest. And they just sort of blend right in, so you don't even see them necessarily. But I think they help bring out some of those blues. I could put a few along the bottom. Now I have one more thing to add, and then it will be time for the great reveal when we pull that paper off and we can see our results. So bring my smoky slate back, and I have 2 of those little honeybee stamps that we'll add here. I think I'll add one over here at this flower, and one up here near the top at that flower. Now we'll get rid of that grid paper in the background and remove our masks. There you can see, and here's what I'm saying, that it always looks more dramatic than you think when that paper is on there. We'll remove this one down at the bottom carefully because some of that ink is still wet. Isn't that pretty? You can create the neatest scenes with this technique. Now I did prepare a stamp just to stamp our greeting up at the top. I am going to use Misty Moonlight. The greetings in this set are really, really delicate, really fine. I'm using this one that says Stay Wonderful. Now here, I'll hold this up a little bit closer so you can see a little bit better, but that is my first sample. Now I do have 3 more of these that I want to share that change up the technique just a touch. So the second one, I've already created this one. This I created with the Paradise Palm stamp set, and this is one I've used several times to create a silhouette type effect, and I really like this set using the black stamping for silhouettes. So I masked this off first. The colors I used to blend were Calypso Coral, Poppy Parade, and then Cherry Cobbler as I got to the top. I wanted to create kind of a sunset effect. And then instead of leaving that masking on when I did my stamping, I pulled the papers off and I did my stamping afterwards. So on the one we just created, all of our stamping falls within that masked area, but on this one, the stamping actually goes outside for a little bit different effect. Now I have a third sample that I need to finish here with you, and I created this one with the Easter Friends stamp set. Really cute stamp set with some adorable animals in it. And what I did for this one, I used Sahara sand to create just a little bit of color on the edges. Then I've stamped my animals here, and I decided to come back in, since the animals weren't filled in all the way with color, to come in and add some color in with the blending brushes. So I use the brushes to create that color along the edge, but then I'm also using the brushes here to fill in the animals in the different colors. So blending brushes aren't terribly precise because they're large, and you know, there aren't any points. They're all round, so you're just filling in wherever you can. But I find that I can still get a pretty good result when I fill in stamps like this. And my fourth sample is going to be a little bit like this one as well. So we'll remove these. I did already stamp my greeting, which you can see hanging out there in the stamped area. And here we have a really cute Easter card. Now, if you notice, I had just inked my Highland Heather ink pad when I did this, and I got extra ink blobs, 2 different places, but no big deal. Have you ever had that happen? Please tell me I'm not the only one. Depending on where you get them, they can be pretty easy to cover up. I'm going to cover these up with some pearls. So that's a pretty easy fix. And then for my fourth card, we're going to do something a little bit like this last one I just showed you, and use the blending brushes to fill in the color. So I made this with this Blessings of Home stamp set. For this one, I created my mask on the side. I put those on there, and then I stamped this big floral image with soft suede ink. I didn't actually do any blending on the sides of this one or the background. I'm only using the blending brushes to add color this time to the flowers themselves. So I'll bring this grid paper back in and we will finish this. I wanted to show you how I did this. I've already used a few colors to create what you can see here. I used Old Olive, So Saffron for the centers of the flowers, Flirty Flamingo, and now I'm going to add some Polished Pink, which should be a little bit darker. So when I'm doing detailed areas like this, I try to start really gently, because if you end up in the wrong spot and you're not gentle, you're going to have a big dab of ink in the wrong spot. So especially for the centers of the flowers and the leaves, I was really careful with where I was adding that ink. But you don't have to be real precise. That's one thing that's nice about this, is it's not going to be perfect, so you don't really have to worry too much. But that glow of color creates a really neat effect around the flowers. So let's take off the papers and you can see the results of this one. And the stamp I chose from this set says, "Thank you for inspiring me." So here you can see the background is basically the same color from top to bottom, since I didn't blend all over that open area, but then the flowers kind of pop out where it was not masked. And this is one here, I'm going to show this up close. We'll see if you can see. This one I did not I did not remove enough of the sticky from my paper. So make sure you get those so they're not so sticky that they tear your paper. But here I'll bring these back in. If you're interested in any of the products I use today, I'll have links in the video description below to all of them. I hope that you learned something here, that this is a technique you can try and use on some of your card projects. One of the things I love so much is that it is right there on that card base. I'm only using one piece of cardstock to make a beautiful card. So try this out, let me know how it goes. Hope you have a blessed day, and I hope you'll be back again next time when I'll be here helping you to hand make with love.